hate it when you go to Earth.
Earth 2025.
The order was a white female, mid-20s.
Human body parts are the hottest commodity.
It was a slaughter.
And lethal games the cheapest thrill. International box office sensation Don the Dragon Wilson, WKA World Kickboxing Champion. Black Belt magazine calls Don Wilson the greatest kickboxer of all time. Future Kick.
My husband was murdered yesterday. His heart was cut out.
We'll find something.
That's not enough.
A desperate woman hires an android bounty hunter to track and eliminate her husband's killer.
I'll pay you $50,000.
But what she discovers is New Body, a pristine megacorporation with a hideous secret.
New Body exists because of me. I go, it goes.
He killed my husband, and I'm not going to let him get away with it.
Why do you want to find this guy? He'll rip you soon as look at you.
You were sloppy. Someone saw you rip him. His wife was on your trail.
A personal quest for vengeance.
Facelift.
A high-tech race for survival.
Our agreement is terminated.
Don the Dragon Wilson, star of Blood Fist. Meg Foster from Leviathan and Blind Fury. Christopher Penn of Footloose and At Close Range. Future Kick.
Auto pan target.
Bless you, Julie. It's 3:30. Have you taken your cold medicine?
Cut it out.
I'm sorry, Julie. I can't do that.
Bill.
Oh, I'm sorry, hon. Betsy put me up to it.
What? No way, Mom. It was Sam. Was not.
Oh, listen, hon. The bank just sent the papers over. The loan was approved, but they need your signature on the truth in lending form. Right there.
There you go.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mom.
Oh, hey, come on, guys. Calm down, all right?
Combine chart and film. Sync and posterize. In conclusion, we are poised to offer the first zero-emission, high-performance sports car in history. The last solar-powered fuel plant went on stream this week. The delivery infrastructure is in place. And as our Austin-Kiev simulation shows, we have passed our last production hurdle. Our first cars hit the showrooms March 26th. And we project shipment of over 5,000 cars per month by the end of spring. Our numbers suggest that total domestic sales volume for the first full modeled year will exceed 80,000 automobiles. In short, we are ready to build a car that will make this company a lot of money now.
What do you say now, Mike?
Very impressive presentation, Julie. However, I have to seriously question these sales figures, Reg. Just look at the DX9 launch in April of '99. It was an unmitigated disaster. And why? Because you cannot launch a sports car in the spring. All you have to do is look at the percentages of exotic cars that end up in California. We've all seen the figures. Californians buy 85% of the exotic cars in this country.
What's that got to do with...
No, Reg, just a minute. Let me run with this. Now, by the time their marketing ramps up, it'll be fall, and that's a best-case scenario. It rains in California in the fall. And when it rains, you cannot sell sports cars. My luxury car, on the other hand, is a year-round car. And we are ready to start production and promotion. I want to launch now. And we can bring out Julie's car in the fall, and she's had time to reassess the...
May I interrupt? First, our PR campaign is in full swing all over the world. Mike McCormick, who is not exactly loose with the compliments, just today called it one of the finest PR campaigns to come out of this town in a long time. As for the DX9 launch, it was hurt, not by season, but by earthquake. The big one of '99 is the real cause for Mr. O'Connor's sluggish sales. But when people calmed down and the highways were reopened, sales soared. In fact, if I slide their line onto our chart, thank you, Adrian, you can see that their run rate at year end is identical to ours. So unless Mr. O'Connor has some early notice of another earthquake, I think we can safely look for sales to explode.
Thanks, Julie. I think we've heard enough. You and your team have done a superlative job. Let's build it. Now, Mike's car. We'll go back to the original production schedule, although, Hiroshi, I believe you had some concerns about Mike's projections and cost and setting up the production line?
Sun Microsystems, the power of the future.
You're watching Sleepcore. Pleasant dreams.
Hyperspace that's being created. You know, we had this chance 5,000 years ago when we started living in cities and we made all the wrong decisions. Hierarchical society, kingship, straight street plans, phonetic alphabets. This time, I hope we're a little smarter and we can exalt magic, eroticism, the feminine, tribal values, and an emphasis on the natural world and a de-emphasis on consumerism, thing worship, sexism, and generalized stupidity. So, you know, when you think about the cybernetic community, the psychedelic community, the cyberpunk community, it's at places like this that we gather and we self-select out of the rest of society. So what I think would be important to come out of an evening like this is that everybody take a good look at the people next to them and realize that somebody in this room has what you need, and you have what somebody in this room needs. The spreading of the idea of cyberspace has two aspects. It's first of all informing people for whom all of this is new and completely unexpected, but then the other thing is deepening our own commitment to it. And that means more plant psychedelics. It means higher doses in silent darkness. It means a commitment and a courage to live out this way of life so that we can really take back our minds from the dominator culture, the linear, paternalistic, industrial, capitalist culture, and live the kind of erotic tribalism that we have our fondest memories of. What put me on to the connection between archaic shamanism and the new technology and the new music was when I went to the Amazon and spent time with the people down there who use a plant psychedelic called ayahuasca. I discovered that the people were singing what they called magical songs that were revealed to them under the intoxicating influence of this plant. But when they criticized the magical songs to each other, they treated them like painting or like sculpture, not like music. So someone would sing a song, and then everyone would say, well, I liked the part with the blue stripes and the yellow dots, but I didn't like the part that was red with gray overlay. In other words, for them, sound was something that you see rather than hear. And my fantasy for virtual reality is to use it as a technology for objectifying language. Because you see, if we could see what we meant when we spoke, it would be a kind of telepathy. The method that we use to communicate now, small mouth noises moving through space as acoustical signals, and then the consulting of learned dictionaries, this is not a wide band of communication. And yet the whole world is held together by small mouth noises and their electronic transductions as radio, television, and so forth. So what the cyberpunk generation holds out to the rest of us is a new kind of communication, a communication that is like telepathy because it's seen with the eyes. And so then it dissolves boundaries and unites us back into this tribal community that we feel such a need for. It's always held against the technical community that somehow we've moved beyond the values of the natural and the biological world. But if you think about what the tools of cyberspace are, they are integrated circuits, chips, and electronic components which are made of gold, platinum, arsenic, silver, copper, silicon. These are all the materials of the earth. And in a sense, what we are doing is organizing the raw material of the earth so that it can reflect the dynamics of electrons, of light moving through fiber optic cables. So really, in the cybernetic revolution, what is happening is a kind of completion of the dream of alchemy, that spirit could actually commingle with metals and glass, and that out of this mingling of spirit and matter could come a new possibility, a new evolutionary option, a kind of philosopher's stone, a kind of panacea at the end of time. And this is, to me, what the computer and the virtual technologies all push toward, a kind of mirroring of our own souls, that what the agenda of cyberspace is a kind of turning the body inside out, bringing the soul into visible manifestation in the world as a kind of eternal transdimensional object, and then turning the body into a freely commanded object in the human imagination. I mean, this is the idea, to make this reality behind the menu and make the reality of cyberspace the reality in front of the screen, to reverse the figure-ground relationship and find ourselves free at last in the imagination.
You're watching Sleepcore, media for insomnia.
In the future, the rules have changed.
Who the hell are you?
John Tucker, civilian-operated police. You have committed a crime and been found guilty. You have a right to die.
Nobody's that fast. Nobody.
Should ask my opinion. David Carradine.
Right place. Gotta work on our timing.
Ted Pryor. Future Zone, where no one escapes the long arm of the law. He came from another world to help set things straight. It was a race against time, and no one can escape a force from the future. Hunted, hated, and destined to die, the future was his only way out.
Put it this way, Hoffman. This might be your lucky day. You let her go, you got a second chance to live.
David Carradine. Ted Pryor. In Future Zone.
Music is probably going to be moving towards more of a combination of primitive, very local or rural, indigenous musics, coming together with all the technology that we have now.
I think that the technological changes in the music industry are going to be so great that they'll kind of leave the world at your fingertips.
Technology does not drive change at all. Technology merely enables change.
If you're looking at all of today's computer applications, you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg of what's possible.
Using a computer ought to be like a pleasant walk in the woods.
Computers can do lousy jobs people don't want to do.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Owen. How are you? Fine. How was your day? Fine. That's great. Go wash your hands and you can have a snack.
So it's not the case that people don't use computers, they're just using poor computers.
Hey, Jake, show me the Beyond 2000 special.
If this computer was a car, it might be a 1940s model, a big old gas guzzler, good fun to drive on the weekends. If this computer was a car, it might be an early 80s make, zippy in traffic, easier on fuel, and easier to park. Here's our 90s model, incredibly fast, fuel efficient, and you can take it anywhere. But will you have a use for it?
When the automobile went from a novelty item into mass production, Henry Ford could have hardly imagined how powerful and important the car would become, from individual ownership to its effect on the world economy. And that has occurred over a period of just 80 years. For all its technological wonders, the computer is still not a big hit with the masses. As the salesman might put it, the market penetration is nothing like that of the car and nothing like what it should be. But if we're to believe the industry this time, all that's about to change. If the check has been in the mail all this time, it's at last being delivered. Voice recognition is now a viable proposition.
Jake, show me your friend Casper.
Casper recorded Beyond 2000 this Tuesday.
Virtual reality is about to walk in your front door. The television is smartening up its act. You'll be able to write that novel you've been thinking about. Or teach yourself to fly without leaving the ground. Although Owen Iddings is part of a generation for whom computers are part of the furniture, even he will be astounded by the pace of change. There are compelling reasons for the arrival of these technologies. Back to our car analogy. When we head off to our destinations each day, we think nothing of it. The vehicles we drive are simple and easy to operate. The communication and information vehicles we now operate aren't nearly as simple. They look great, they have tremendous capabilities, but they fall a long way short of that great computer cliche, user-friendly.
Look at a 35mm camera today. A chimpanzee can take as good a photograph as Lord Snowden with a 35mm camera today, because all you have to do is point it and click it, and it'll do all the rest for you. We have not gotten computers even close to that point yet.
The global financial squeeze is forcing home the point. Many of the companies making the hardware and software are having megabytes taken from their once mega profit margins. The voice of the consumer is also being heard. An industry shake-up has started. In Silicon Valley, still the heart of high-tech, there's cause for optimism. Advances in digital communication enabling high-speed information transfers are fueling the changes. There'll be more computers, but they'll be less conspicuous, more functional and less complicated, far more powerful and much cheaper. Above all else, they'll be more interactive and less passive. They'll be packaged in such a way that we won't think of them as we do now.
Jake, show me Jim Clark.
The ordinary consumer will not care whether they're looking or dealing with a computer or not. The only thing they're going to care about, I think, is what they get that they didn't have before.
In the 80s, it was as if the computer was an island, and the only people who could reach it were those who designed the technology and the privileged few who understood how to use it properly. Access is what the 90s promises. Bridges in the form of products that will open up the computer to an entirely new group of users. The potential market could be upwards of 1 billion users, spending about $3 trillion in 10 years' time. If you don't own a computer now, some way, somehow, someone will be enticing you to buy one. Think of videos, phones and faxes, how easy they are to use. That's where we're headed. Simplicity. Products that blur the line between the home and the office. This sort of friendly.
Excuse me, Jill Gilbert is calling back.
We'll show you more of that later.
Hi, Mike. What's up?
We'll see the computer doing more and more to make things easy to use and more efficient, more environmentally correct, less polluting.
And a change that is starting to come to the computer industry is taking the computers and turning them into consumer electronics products.
It's a kind of return to a more relaxed time via more pervasive technology. So it seems like a contradiction, but I think that's what we're going to get.
The revolution isn't behind us. The revolution's in front of us.
You're watching Sleepcore. Sleep tight.
Today we are buoyed by optimism as remarkable changes occur. The Cold War is dying. Europe is being transformed. The United States is prepared for apocalyptic war with the Soviet Union for as long as most Americans can remember. Old war plans must now be set aside, but new ones are already taking their place. What kind of wars is the U.S. military preparing for in a post-Cold War world? What wars will take place in the future? Are we entering a period of peace and prosperity, or will it be a world of danger and conflict, a world at war? Today on America's Defense Monitor, we look at future wars. America's Defense Monitor. A weekly program on the military and international affairs that affect you, your family, and people throughout the world. Here is your host.
During 37 years of service in the U.S. Navy, I was involved in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. I was also involved as commanding officer of a squadron of nuclear-capable attack aircraft in the Cuban Missile Confrontation. I would think that these risky moments may be behind us because of the recent developments in the world, but others believe that there may be increased risks of war. You will hear today from some of those people as they define the instability and dangers of war in the future.
The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming home. Some of America's top military officials think the prospect of a war between the United States and the Soviet Union is as low as it has ever been. Still, Pentagon officials see plenty of threats to prepare for. We will hear today from the top military planners, including the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We will learn the views of former Secretaries of Defense and Chairmen of the Joint Chiefs. We will also hear from the U.S. military commanders around the world, the CINCs, or Commanders-in-Chief. The United States is the only country that has divided the world into military commands and placed an admiral or general in charge of each. One thing to keep in mind, military men tend to dwell on what they call the worst-case scenarios. The American military hunts for enemies and dangers on the dark side of the post-Cold War world. We will hear from other experts who see more opportunity than nightmare in the future. What kind of world do American military officials foresee? Defense Secretary Richard Cheney starts at the most basic level.
I'm not prepared to say that the fundamental nature of mankind has changed. I think you have to anticipate that the United States will again be engaged, unfortunately, in combat various places in the world.
General Colin Powell is chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
The world may be less threatening, but it is also, I believe at the moment, less stable, and there's a great deal of uncertainty in the world.
General John Galvin is the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe.
Obviously, things are going to change very rapidly here. We're living in a time where a week sees as many changes as a few years used to see. So it's very hard to say what things would be like even next month.
Admiral Frank Kelso is Commander-in-Chief of the Atlantic Command.
There is great instability also, as you noted, in our world, and it probably will not clear up in the morning.
Admiral Huntington Hardesty is Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Command.
For the first time in decades, we see more opportunities in the world than threats. We must seize those opportunities to shape the future. But the upheaval of this age may not be over.
Uncertainty, instability, unpredictability. Those are the watchwords of today's American military planners. General Powell goes further.
And we must always, Mr. Chairman, be prepared for the crisis that no one expected and the contingency that no one planned for.
Preparation for old wars continues. The Pentagon isn't sure the Cold War is really ending. Its latest planning guidance forecasts intense U.S.-Soviet rivalry in most of the world. Secretary Cheney warns that recent changes in Soviet policy could be reversed.
There is enormous uncertainty about the likely political developments in the Soviet Union in the months and years immediately ahead. There could be a sudden reversal of current trends in terms of Soviet foreign and national security policy.
James Schlesinger, Secretary of Defense in the 1970s, disagrees.
It is not possible, in my judgment, to reverse the changes that have occurred in the last year. From an American standpoint, Mr. Gorbachev has done his job well and thoroughly. In the first place, the result of his actions cannot lead to a restoration of the Soviet imperium in Eastern Europe.
Pentagon planners emphasize that even if President Gorbachev stays in power, the Soviet Union will retain nuclear weapons, and there could be a nuclear war in our future.
The Soviet Union, restructured, reformed, perhaps less offensive, nevertheless will be a military superpower and will remain the only nation on the face of the earth with the military capability to destroy the United States. And we can never, never erase that from our consideration and our thinking.
Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense under Presidents Kennedy and Johnson, offers a more hopeful perspective on the future of U.S.-Soviet relations.
It need not be a world of conflict between the superpowers, between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, between East and West, between the Warsaw Pact and NATO. That's the proposition Gorbachev has put before us. I think there's a real possibility we in the U.S. can dramatically shift away from the danger of the past 40 years and have a totally different relationship between East and West for the next 40 years.
As we contemplate the prospect of life under the nuclear sword, perhaps we should note that President Gorbachev has proposed the abolition of all nuclear weapons. A utopian goal, certainly, but one that may deserve careful attention if we wish to escape a deliberate or accidental nuclear war in the future.